guys, my name is Rori, and you are listening to Rori's Room, the podcast where we discuss anything and everything life throws at us. Welcome to Season 3, More Than Just a Job. I am sitting down with creatives and professionals who are chasing and shaping the work that they have always wanted to do. This season is all about sharing different perspectives from different fields and revealing just how those paths might have changed them along the way. This week we are sitting down with screenwriter and filmmaker Adam Smith, a well-known and inspiring creative in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Without further ado, let's meet Adam. How are you doing, Adam?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to have you. Have you seen any good films lately?
I have. I actually just started watching Robert Duvall's Oscar-winning performance from he's called Tender Mercies. I've got like 20 minutes left, but I love it. It's really, really good. And then I would say if I had a recommendation for the best movie of last year, it's going to be an oddball answer, but The Baltimoreans by Jay Duplass.
I don't think I've seen it, but I love the name.
Very good.
I feel like I haven't had a lot of time to watch a lot of films and stuff lately, but I have been trying to get caught back up with, have you seen The Boys?
Mm-hmm.
We finished that, I think, when it came out, but we just started watching the newest season of Gen V. I don't know, I can't really think of any other stuff that I've watched lately. We've been watching a lot of YouTube, just because, it's always been so busy. We usually put, a video on when we're eating dinner or something, but it's just been so busy, we've just been eating at our desk, which is kind of sucky, but you do what you gotta do.
What do they call that? Being an iPad kid? I'm very guilty of it.
No. Yeah, honestly, yeah. Unfortunately, that's the case.
Yeah,
you do the same thing.
Yeah, I cannot eat without having YouTube on. It's just part of it.
I feel like it's so common in this day and age, too. It's so normalized, which I'm all for, sitting down at a dinner table. But, I feel like it's gotta be a habit that's need to be integrated in my life. I can't just do it right now.
Yeah, I feel like if I put a bunch of effort into cooking dinner that night, that gives me an excuse to sit at the dinner table. But if it's something takes me 10 minutes, I just plop on the couch and throw YouTube on and eat like that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. The only thing that happens, or sometimes happens with me, is that I'll just eat, when you're in a movie theater and you're eating popcorn, you just kind of just keep eating. So that can be a struggle. When we have pizza or something, we'll just devour that entire pizza box.
Oh, yeah.
And it's half gone now, so.
We do sheet nachos a lot because my partner is vegetarian, so that's a good meat in the middle. I can throw meat on my side if I want to, but we'll make a whole baking pan of nachos, and we never really get through it all, but it's always really good.
Do they get stale? Can you keep them, or?
We never do. I feel like they would get stale.
Yeah, I feel like they would too. I feel like even tortilla, what are they called? The wraps. Why am I forgetting what they're called?
Tortillas.
Yeah. Yeah, just tortillas. Yeah, I mean, even on quesadillas, the tortilla gets stale, so I can only imagine that I would do the same thing with the chips. How are you feeling about the fake spring?
I don't know. I loved it, but I was glad I was off work for it, so that was the big benefit. Usually I'm working right now, so next week it'll be cold and I'll be working, of course, so oh well.
When I found out about that fake spring, I was actually so livid because I'm a big warm weather person. So I feel kind of stuck when it's winter, I'm inside all the time and I just really want to be out in the sun. And it really makes me want to move down south, but obviously I can't. But it's been so nice lately and I'm able to go for runs outside. And then last night it even rained and I was oh God, I really hope that this fake spring is actually just spring, so that way it doesn't freeze over and become super slick. Because I just know my day will get ruined if I fall on the ice.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And usually it starts at 7 in the morning, so I don't want to be angry at 7.
Yeah, we've got a dog with, he tore his ACL 4 years ago, so he has a metal rod in his leg. And when we were in Missouri, we never really had issues with it. But we moved up here and it got really cold and he just doesn't use that leg once it's 15 degrees or less. So, and he's a heavy dog.
Metal?
It just gets so cold that he doesn't want to bend his leg. So he'll get to the point where he'll use the restroom and he'll just sit down and expect us to carry him inside. He's 70 pounds, so yeah.
I had really big dogs growing up too. We had a German Shepherd Husky, a Pit Bull, and a Pit Bull Lab, and all of them thought they were 2 pounds and lap babies. And don't get me wrong, they definitely were big cuddle bugs, but they were heavy. It was a time, especially when we would get home and they're all so excited to see us that they'll sprint at us towards the door and almost knock us down. And They're so excited too with guests. that it's like they stand no chance if they walk into our house.
Yep, that's how we are. One of ours is a pit bull mix, and I think that's the pit in him. He's just so lovable and energetic, and there's no one that he doesn't want to meet. And then my golden, he's the exact opposite. He'll see you once, and then he'll go hide somewhere in a room and go to sleep.
It's so crazy to me, like, have had a pit bull growing up, that the stereotype is that pit bulls are so aggressive, when in reality, any dog or any animal can be aggressive if they're raised like that.
Oh, yeah.
But pit bulls are just like some of the sweetest dogs in the entire world.
Yeah, I'll always have a pit bull. I mean, that's ever since I've had one, I'll always have one. You get it at an early enough age, you can get ahead of all those tendencies that some pit bulls might have, even though I think all dogs have that.
Yeah, no, I agree. Okay, Adam. So one thing I like to do in this podcast is a thing I like to call weekly favorites. It's where I talk about a podcast or a song that I've been listening to lately, and one thing I can get behind versus one thing I can't. In your case, I'm going to customize it so we can both talk about music or podcast or a piece of media from like the film area of things. Or you can do a combination, it's really up to you. But I would love to hear your input first, so if you'd like to introduce your first favorite piece of media, what would it be?
I just discovered this new podcast called What Went Wrong, and the podcast takes famous movies in history and it tells you all the challenges that these movies had in order to be made. And I'm listening to the most recent episode about Bad Santa, which is Billy Bob Thornton's one of my favorite actors, and he's from the same area of the country that I'm from, so I always root for him. And it's a really cool podcast. It shows that even the biggest hits in our society had a lot of struggles that independent filmmakers also faced.
I think that's an important thing to talk about too, because I feel like personally I always draw inspiration from my own experiences in film, and I feel like that's a very common thing for not only filmmakers but creatives as well. And I don't think it's talked about enough, like the creative process. People just always expect that it just comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, what is it? Whenever you go into a production, you're doing like 20 days of work for one day of production. So
yeah,
there's a lot of hurdles in those 20 days leading up to that one day of production.
Yeah, and the stuff that the audience does see, there's so much that they don't see. There's way more that they don't see. Whether it be like pre-production and actually like coming up with the idea, which can take forever, especially if you have a creative block, writing it down, filming it, getting extra footage that you don't even need, figuring out what you do need, what you will use, and then producing that product. And honestly, I love creating, but it can be a really hard process, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Would you say that this is one of your top 10 favorite pieces of media now, or do you have a specific one?
They've got so many episodes that I feel like it's gonna take up all my time of driving on jobs in the next few weeks.
Yeah.
I do a lot of traveling to and from jobs. Like next week I have a 6-hour drive up north, so I'll probably knock out 3 episodes. So it's got such a backlog for me that I think it will become my favorite podcast. But before that, there's a podcast called No Such Thing, and it's 3 dudes that grew up together as like high school, college buddies, and they would smoke and just talk about the most random things. But now they've matured in their life and they're all dads and bosses, and they decided to make a podcast out of it. And last year they won Best New Podcast at, I think, the Emmys. And it's a really cool podcast. And the topics are very random. The one that I listened to last week was, are inside cats or outside cats more happy? And they use scientists to actually study if the inside cat or an outside cat is more healthy. And it's all topics like that.
It's always so refreshing seeing that kind of character arc. I don't know. I just have a soft spot for all that stuff with, like, especially dads who have podcasts. They always know exactly what to say.
But yeah.
I love listening to podcasts, but lately I've been really into audiobooks because I had Audible for a short period of time, and though I don't have the subscription anymore, you do get to keep the books that you already bought. So I like to listen to those. Or what other podcasts do I like to listen to? I have an app where I listen to podcasts on there, but it's like a paid subscription, and it's kind of like video diaries-ish. But I don't know, I feel like just having something on in the background is, I guess it relates to our iPad kidness in a way, like constant stimulation.
Oh yeah.
I was on a run yesterday, and I could hear like the birds chirping through my headphones, and I was like, I kind of felt bad. I was like, maybe I should actually like unplug for a second and enjoy this beautiful weather before it's gone.
Yeah.
So I did, but then by that time my running was over. And also, when I'm running, I don't want to hear like how badly I'm breathing. So I think music and podcasts is definitely the way to go. But maybe if I'm out for a walk and I'm not like panting, I'm definitely not as good as a runner as I was last fall. Like you can definitely tell that the winter has passed me
at all.
That's okay. So for my recommendation, I kind of chose something different. I chose a movie, and this is one that I haven't seen in a very long time, but I watched it my senior year of high school, which was either fall of 2019 or the spring of 2020, like right before COVID happened. That semester could have been such a good semester if COVID didn't happen, but that's a different story. Have you ever heard of La Vie en Rose?
I don't think so.
It's a song too. For those of you who aren't familiar, La Vie en Rose is a French biological drama about a life of a legendary singer. Her name is Edith Piaf. Have you heard of her?
I have not.
I didn't hear about her until I watched this movie, and then I kind of like fell into a rabbit hole with all her stuff, because I also feel like it's a really good movie to talk about on this podcast, especially because we were talking about how your stories can shape your life, and especially like creating and stuff like that. And Edith is a singer, and the film follows her journey from childhood to adulthood, shaped by poverty and abandonment. And it's one of my favorite movies because it just has an amazing arc, and it's one of those movies that isn't told in like chronological order, so you have to kind of like piece everything together as you go, but it captures like the highs and lows of like emotion and fame, and shows a piece of kind of like, I guess, fame in a way, like celebrity life that you don't always see, and like love and addiction and physical struggle, because I feel like that's a really important thing to talk about. And I think it's pronounced like Cotillard. Marion Cotillard is starring in the film, and she's such an amazing actor, and she actually looks a lot like who she's portraying, and it actually made me cry. It was so good. It was so emotional, and I highly recommend it, even if you've never heard the music or anything. But personally, it's one of my favorite movies, and it's been like, how many years has it been? I don't even want to know. 6 years since I was senior in high school. Dating myself right now, but it was one of the movies that I look back on a lot. You talked about growing up in a very socially extreme environment, and for listeners who may not know, what is a sundown town? And how did living in one shape your early understanding of the world?
So a sundown town, by definition, would be a white-only town that is specifically voted that way. You keep it all white at the government level. But in the Civil Rights Act of 1968, they banned all sundown towns. So there's no official sundown towns. It's all unofficial. But I think the threshold is 95% white, and the town that I lived in until I was 12 was 99% white. And it's implied that once the sun goes down, if you're a minority, you shouldn't be in that town.
Scary.
Yeah.
And you had a big family, right?
Yeah, there was 6 of us kids, and I'd say all my parents had 5 or 6 siblings apiece, plus they all have 5 or 6 kids, so I probably got close to 100 first cousins.
That's insane. How do you even keep track of all that?
I choose not to be honest.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you. Without naming specifics, how did all of that, both your environment and like your family and the dynamics of all that, how did that impact your ability to express creativity and grow into your craft?
So I was raised by my father and his stepfamily, or my stepfamily, the family that he married into in Southeast Missouri. And for people that are politically involved, the name Rush Limbaugh is a really important name in politics, and not for good reasons, but he's from the town that I went to school in, and a lot of people think and talk and express the same views that he does, even though he's passed away. But I would spend every summer in upstate New York with my mom, who is I call her a U-Haul lesbian, a different woman, different city. Yeah. But we spent every summer in upstate New York, and every summer in upstate New York, she would allow us access to the computer. She would give us cameras. She would always give us reasons to go explore our creativity. And I actually have a YouTube channel from 2007 of me with a bunch of wrestling action figures doing stop motion. So I was doing film at like the age of 7 and 8, and I didn't even think about it. I was just doing it for fun. So I would spend 3 months every year just like honing in on doing more creativity based work, and I'd come back home, and the only creative work I would do living at my dad's would be at school. I'd go to school, and I always enjoyed art class, and I drew a lot growing up.
I feel like a lot of creatives have that, especially nowadays. I don't know, obviously YouTube didn't really exist forever. So I feel like creatives nowadays, especially those who are in our early 20s, all had like a YouTube era. I remember doing stop motion for one video. I don't even think I uploaded it because it was actually like pretty hard and time consuming. And I don't think going into it, I think I just started like messing with things in the video. I don't think I actually had a storyline, so it didn't really go anywhere. But yeah, I mean, what do you think that area of your life, like during those summers, taught you growing up as a young filmmaker?
Well, my mom, even to this day, she's very supportive of anything that her boys do, even if she doesn't fully morally support what some of us would do, but she's always been like front row of the bleachers cheering you on. And all summer it was her asking, what do you guys want to go do, opposed to living with my dad and step family. And it was never that. We were never asked what we wanted to do, where we wanted to go. And it kind of built me creatively, because she had a partner for a long time named Tammy, and we lived in Woodstock, New York, which is actually where the actual Woodstock happened from the 70s. And that's a huge hippie town. And she was a huge artist, and she knew that I was a very good drawer, and I would sit and draw at the kitchen table with her every night. And the next morning we'd walk to this museum down the street, and then she would make me give my drawing to this museum every single day. And it's little moments like that that kind of helped keep, me being creative. I had an aunt in Missouri, her name Aunt Shelley. She used to give us shoe boxes, and we would take grass and dirt and rocks and action figures, and we would make shoebox diagrams, and we would make a scene. You would open the box and we'd have like an ocean scene in one box, we would have like a playground scene in another box. And she was one of the only few in the Southeast Missouri family that was kind of pushing us to do more fun stuff like that.
I feel like, if there's creatives who can do it without a big support system, like there are plenty of examples, but I feel like a really impactful support system is what really builds you up, or your decision to just do it. And you once told me that a lot of people choose not to be creative because there is no support around them, and I highly agree with that. How did not having support when you went back to school, or less support, impact how you made creative stuff in your school?
I think that I liked the bragging rights of doing something creatively at school and then coming home and like showing it off and being like, look at me, I can draw better than you, or look at me, I can do this better than you. And there was a satisfaction in that, because when you grow up with 5 siblings, everything is a competition. And I ended up being the better artist out of us 6. So once I knew that, I kind of ran with that, and I joined every drawing contest at school. Anything that was, art-based, I was chasing after that, because I knew that that was kind of my path that set me apart from my siblings.
And you grew up in an all-black school, right?
Yeah, so until I'd moved at the age of 12, the only bus that would come to that sundown town was an all-black school. And it was kind of messed up now, but I didn't notice it when I was a kid, but we were always the first ones picked up, and we were always the last ones dropped off, because you ran the risk of minorities being on the bus. And I always say it's kind of like whiplash. I'm at home hearing derogatory things about black people, and then I'm going to school and I'm only sharing spaces with black people. So it was one of those things where it's like, who's right versus who's wrong. And I think at the end of the day, I was able to see the value in everyone, and that made me not be as hateful as the people that were around me at home in a very homophobic area of the country, because not only is it racist, but it's also homophobic. Any kind of minority is the enemy, I guess, for the majority of people there. Learning how to talk about my summers without outing myself as having a gay mom was something that kind of helped me learn how to read people, because even to this day, I have men that ask me why I call my girlfriend my partner. And it's like, because that's how I always had to refer to my mom's partner, because if I said my mom's girlfriend, that kind of outed me as being the kid of a gay person. So it helped me the nuances and languages and how people avoid saying certain things. Like I was always able to point out who lived a very similar lifestyle than me based off how they talked about it, without trying to out themselves as being, that.
Right. As you grew older, how did your life develop going into high school and then eventually moving to college?
So I was always, me and my older sister were kind of the academics in the family, and we were both the ones that always had good grades. We always took part in all the clubs and different activities at school. And I got to my sophomore year of high school, and they asked me you're going to college, right? And it wasn't my family that asked, it was more of the school system that asked, because they saw at that age, they were like, you'd be wasting your time if you didn't go to college, especially in this area of the country, because, you know, in those parts of the countries, you at least have community college that's accessible. And when Obama was in office, he provided funds for people like me to go to college. So like, we didn't really have an excuse if you didn't want to go. So sophomore year, I joined this club called, I think it was called 1G, and it was referred to first generation. And I was one of the first people that was a part of this club. And it was a bunch of us kids that grew up very poor, wanting to be the first people in our family to go to college. And I had that group surrounding me, and the majority of us ended up going to college. And it took us we were in the club for 3 years. So, you know, it was 3 years of meeting once a month with professors from local colleges convincing us to stay on that path to go to college.
What originally drove you toward Southeast Missouri State? Was that one of the colleges that came to speak to you guys?
So Southeast Missouri State, which is SEMO, it was only 30 miles north of where I grew up. So it was always, whenever we went to town or the city, you know, that's where you went. You went to the town where the college was at. So it was everywhere. And I actually didn't go my freshman year. I went to Missouri State University, which was in Southwest Missouri in Branson. And I went there for a year. Didn't really like the degree that I was going for, because I originally went for journalism. And then I kind of lost respect for news and journalism with the height and the rise of Trump in our politics. It kind of deflated any aspirations that I had to be a journalist, because it kind of felt like that was the first attack on the press in my lifetime, and I didn't really want to be a subject of that. So I was exploring ways to stay creative and to also write but not do journalism. So then I came back home, closer to home, and did a year or two trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And then I chose TV film because it kind of felt like the best meet in the middle. You're being creative, but you're not relying on politics and the news to do that creativity work. They have a really good TV film program. The school that I originally went to said they had a TV film program, but they didn't. They had placed me in entertainment management, which
that's where I'm at.
Yeah, which was okay, but I didn't like constantly working live events and getting nothing out of it. And I did a lot of fun concerts because the school that I went to was originally it's on the original Route 66, and there's a theater there that has been there since the origin of Route 66. They would do a bunch of really cool concerts there, but they would use student labor to do all these concerts, and we weren't getting anything out of it besides experience. And once you do 1 or 2 concerts, you've pretty much learned everything you need to learn, because it just becomes redundant at that point.
Yeah, I really like UW Whitewater, but it is big on journalism. So a lot of my curriculum, I have to kind of bend to fit what I want to do. I mean, I'm a senior right now, so it wouldn't really pay to transfer. If anything, I maybe would go again like after, but I feel like a lot of the stuff that I'm learning is like, it's suitable to filmmaking, but I feel like I learn a lot more from like people I work with and like the connections, and I feel like I could definitely make it work with all of the stuff. Like, there have been so much good stuff that I've learned here at UW Whitewater. But in terms of like creative filmmaking, I feel like I'm learning so much more just by working with other people and like learning their experiences. And the great thing about filmmaking is that if you draw inspiration from a lot of different areas, particularly your life and your experiences and the people you meet and their experiences, it's really easy to draw inspiration from that and create such impactful things. So that's one thing I really like about filmmaking, is that if you want to, you can create something regardless of where you're at in life.
Yeah, I think even me going to film school, I still think I've learned 90% of my skills by being on set opposed to being in the classroom. And classroom did a really good job of teaching me how to communicate with other filmmakers, but it didn't really teach me how to get over those hurdles of being on an actual film set, because you can't really teach someone how to run into a hurdle if you don't really know what it is, especially when it comes to film, because they happen all the time.
Exactly. What was the first film that you made at college?
At college, I did one called A Date with Anxiety, and it was loosely based off of me single and just too nervous to talk to girls. And it was about this guy that saw his crush in the hallway, and his best friend convinces him to ask her out. And before he does, he bumps into different forms of his anxiety. Like, he bumps into...
Oh, that's cool.
he bumps into his digestive system, and his digestive system says that your stomach's going to start rumbling in 5 minutes, so you better hurry up and get this over with. He runs into his loneliness, and his loneliness is like, she would never want to introduce you to her parents, so don't even try. And my main actor played 6 different forms of himself, just dressed differently, and he was different emotions. And that was the first one, and it got elected to the university's film festival, which is called the Fault Line Film Festival, and which is I'm actually now a judge for this year. So it's really cool.
Awesome.
So my first film, my first festival, I'm now a judge for.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Is that like a concrete rule, or is that just like different every year?
It's different every year. They have the same 3 or 4 professors that judge, and then they have guest judges come in based off of their relationship with the university. And I'm judging the mystery and horror genre this year.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting.
I'd love to see that short film.
Yeah, I can send it to you.
You still have it.
Yeah, I can send it to you. It was funny.
Amazing.
So once that ended, COVID happened, and then our film festival got moved to online, so I didn't get to show it in person. I didn't get to go and network. So a year passed, school came back to session, and I was very surprised that all 3 of my lead actors came back to the university, and none of them were actually from there. So we decided to do a sequel to it, and it was called After a Date with Anxiety. And we played the pandemic into the storyline, and we played it as if he asked her on a date, she said yes, then the world shut down, and then they finally went on their date a year later. And they're just
giving
drastically,
Captain America.
Yeah, they're like
vibes.
Drastically different people at this point a year later, because the pandemic really, I feel like the pandemic showed a lot of people who they are, you know, sitting at home, and it gave a lot of time to self-reflect or to find new hobbies or to break old habits. That was the biggest benefit from the pandemic.
Yeah. When were you in college during the pandemic?
Yeah, so I'm a pandemic graduate, so my senior semester is when the pandemic happened. So we went to school January, February, and then March 10th, you know, whatever that was when the world shut down.
I think it was the 13th, wasn't it?
Somewhere around there. So when that happened, they were pretty much just like, all right, guys, you're graduated. You know, like...
Really?
Yeah, so I graduated like 2 months later, and they've given me a pass to walk anytime I want. And I have a joke running that I want to do it when I'm like 90. And I keep like emailing the professors at CMO saying is my pass still good for life? Because that is my plan. I want to walk when I'm like 90 years old, because I think that'd be fun. You
should actually hold yourself to that.
Oh, I plan to, because when my partner graduated a year later, they asked all of us to walk with that class. And I'd say 90% of us did walk with that class, but I just told them that I don't really want to walk for like 70 years. And I think it'd be fun to make a full career out of TV film and then go and walk at graduation, 60 or 70 years later.
You met your partner there too. And I remember you mentioned that you cast her in your student film. Is that how you met?
So it's funny. I didn't cast her. So I met her in the casting process. And it wasn't based off of skill or anything like that. It was based off availability. And I cast a couple of her friends, and then we met through that. Her friends kind of put us in connection through that. But she did audition for my senior project.
That's funny.
But she's a part of all my film projects now. So like she makes a small cameo in everything that I'm a part of.
I recognized her voice immediately when watching the Aroma Vision trailer, which we'll get into later in the episode. But yeah, she has a very, very good presence in both stage and digital media, in my opinion. Yeah, she's breaking her way into commercials, which is nice because that actually is one of the few ways that you can make good money in this area of the country as an actor or performer. What did directing in college and early collaboration teach you about that, directing actors? It taught me how to stay laid back but also stay in command. And with directors, you have to play that fine line, because at the end of the day, people are going to base their production off how the director acted or how the AD acted. And at that point, we didn't have an AD, so it was just director, camera, audio. It was very skeleton. And it taught me how to keep my composure, but also stay in command of a scene, because that's kind of the most important thing that a director needs to do. Yeah, it's definitely a process. It's definitely not easy to do. Do you think having an actress and a performer as your partner has influenced how you write over the years? Oh yeah, so before we got together, and this is a lot of film school dudes, we all write the lonely film dude who
struggles with some kind of addiction. It just seems like we all want to write some form of ourselves and then exaggerate it some. But
absolutely,
with her, she has taught me to look at the main character and say, hey, does this work as a woman? And if it doesn't work as a woman, then you're doing it wrong. And she's taught me that, and I do a really good job of prioritizing the plot and the storyline of a story opposed to trying to base everything off of myself.
It can be really easy to draw from yourself too. I think it's definitely interesting, that piece of advice there. I was actually writing it down because that's a really good piece of advice.
Yeah, because we were doing, I forgot what it was. We were writing something, and then as she's reading it, she's like, I'm just reading you. You know, like, I'm trying to read these lines and trying to base it off of how I would interpret this character. Here's my cat.
I saw her. It's a girl or boy?
It's a boy. His name is Percy. He likes to take the little knickknacks off my shelf. But she was pretty much saying, I'm just reading another version of you, and it doesn't read the way that you want it to for this story. And now every time I write a character, because there's a certain term for it in film that most writers write the woman as having either a sexual relationship, or I forgot what the term is, but there's a term for it about how most writers and directors in a male-dominated fields write women characters based off of their relationship from the man. And it's never based off just who they are. And she introduced me to that theory, and I try my best to consider that theory whenever I'm writing characters.
Well, it's such good, interesting pieces of advice, and it sounds like this made you a better filmmaker.
I think so, for sure.
It's nice to have that. I feel like a lot of us look for advice from other people in the filmmaking field, like other directors and stuff. So it's really refreshing to see, and I'm sure to have that other perspective in your life.
Yeah, and she's a really good voice for, because a lot of us don't really learn how to interact with actors. We get in class, they tell us how to prioritize the plot, they tell us how to, crew up, they tell us what you need to have on set, but they never explain the dynamics from actors to film and directors and writers, because at least at my university, the only actors we had was the theater department. And I have a lot of respect for theater actors ever since being with my partner. And even before I knew theater actors, I always considered them the weirdest bunch of people ever. But I think that is a huge benefit to them because it sets them apart from most actors. And a lot of them aren't scared to take those risks. And as a director, you want actors that are going to take those risks. And a lot of theater actors have already done that, so they're not afraid to do it again.
When do you feel like you first started taking filmmaking very seriously, like as a career rather than just like a creative outlet? I feel like a lot of people even go through like college thinking there's a lot of people around us that are constantly telling us that it's not a realistic field to be in, that you're not going to make money, that it's a competitive business, which it is 100%, but that doesn't make it easier for us to hear that. So how did you kind of diminish that and really start to kick off your career?
I would say probably getting with my partner was a huge part of it, because she wasn't from Southeast Missouri, so she knew that the moment she graduated, she was either going to go back to Chicago or she was going to go to a major market somewhere. And I had that mindset, but I was also very scared of that mindset because I'd only been in Southeast Missouri my whole life. And dating her, it told me that I need to be realistic about being a filmmaker, and you really can't be a successful filmmaker in a place like Southeast Missouri because film relies on relationships, and the only relationships that you're getting in a place like that relies on church and news. Those are the only major productions, and to me, those are arguably the most toxic environments, especially in a place like Southeast Missouri. If you don't believe what they believe, you're kind of the outsider and you're never gonna get through to certain people. I guess becoming aware that I had to move to become successful, and once I knew that I was gonna move, that's whenever I decided that if I'm gonna move, I have to take it serious.
What about Missouri made you realize that it wasn't the place for you?
I started having opinions that most people didn't like, and I am a very loud, passionate person. I'm not afraid to say what I feel or say how I think. I was the editor-in-chief of my high school newspaper, and my professor or teacher, she was a very faithful Christian woman. So a lot of topics that I would bring up that I thought they were controversial, but they were also important topics, got shut down by the school district. And that's whenever I kind of knew that I kind of want to chase after that controversy. I think more people should hear about differing opinions, and I didn't really have that opportunity in high school. So when I got to college and I was able to hone in on those topics, it kind of gave me the satisfaction of talking to other people that agreed with me.
When you and your partner were looking to move, what narrowed it down to Milwaukee?
We wanted to do a city that had both film and theater. And there's not a lot of cities outside of LA and New York, and we definitely did not want to start off in LA or New York.
Right.
And because she grew up in Chicago, Milwaukee is a sister city to Chicago. It's only 90 minutes away. That kind of made us choose Milwaukee. We visited a couple times and we fell in love with the people. The people are the same as, from the Mid-South where I'm from. It's that really nice Midwest nice, holding the door for each other. You still get that in Milwaukee, and you wouldn't get that in New York or LA.
Right. Was there any culture shock that you experienced moving from Missouri to Wisconsin?
Yeah, so the restaurant that I worked at for 7 years leading up to the move is called Lambert's Cafe, and there's 3 of them around the country. But I worked at the original one with the original family, and the novelty of the restaurant is that they throw dinner rolls to anybody in the restaurant that wants one. And I did that for the majority of my stay there whenever I wasn't waiting tables. And at a place like that, you have to really lean into the Southern aspect of it all. And older women were always sweetie or baby or honey. And you always referred to people that way, and people didn't really think anything of it because that's just where you were at. And then, excuse me, I moved up here, and before I met anyone in the TV film industry, I was waiting tables up here. And like my first or second day on the job, I called an older woman sweetie, and she chewed me out in front of the whole restaurant because it wasn't, and I didn't realize it, but it didn't read the same way up here as it would down south. And when you go to a place not expecting to be waited on by someone with a thick Southern accent, it kind of took her off guard, and then her snapping at me, it took me off guard. And that was a big culture shock, was communicating to people differently up here.
Yeah. What did that all teach you about resilience, working in other areas besides film, getting your footing?
I think no matter what job field you go into in your life, I think everyone should spend time working in a restaurant. And I think anyone that works in a restaurant should work both back of house and front of house, because, the front of house on the floor, it teaches you how to deal with the worst of the worst, because it doesn't matter what restaurant you work at, you're going to bump into people that are just really hard to work with.
Yeah.
And then the back of the house, it shows you just like the steady craziness of keeping up with everyone in the front of the house. And I've worked every position from cook to washing dishes to table cleaning. I've done it all, and I think every single level of experience that I got there taught me how to become a better filmmaker, because a lot of the times you're doing that collaborative work on film. It's very similar.
Yeah, I feel like working in mundane jobs, I don't know if that's the word or not, but that also correlates with just getting ultimate human experience, and it helps you build creativity and build your creativity off those life experiences. And that's one thing that AI can never match, is the fact that it doesn't have human experience, and it can't. I've seen AI stuff, AI films and stuff, just to see what they look like. And you can always tell that it's not written by a human because you don't relate to the characters. The characters are so shallow, and they'll try to do emotional moments, but sometimes I'll just sit there and I'm like, I don't really have an emotional correlation to these characters, so I'm not going to cry during this scene. I don't really care what happens to them because they haven't had any character development. And that's having these experiences working in restaurants and other mundane areas of work helps build that credibility in our work. And I think that's one thing that can never be replaced with AI.
I think another part of it is once you've worked, the bottom of the food chain in those jobs, no job becomes, I don't know what the term I'm looking for, but there's no job beneath me. If I'm getting on a film set and they're just sorry, I worked on Top Chef for a year, and sorry guys, but you're gonna have to wash dishes after today's episode. And it was well, yeah, but if I jump in there and I do it and don't complain, someone's gonna notice that. And I got that same mindset from being in the restaurants, was if I sat here and I clean enough dishes or I clean enough tables, eventually someone's gonna notice my hard work and willingness just to do it. And it'll help me move up that chain later.
What did being part of that crew teach you about professionalism and scale?
That was the first major production where I was able to see huge crews at different levels. I was able to set in with the camera department, and there was 10 to 15 of them in just the camera department, and you could go in there for a day and just, hey, I'm going to be the production assistant that's kind of hovering around you guys. If you need anything, let me know. And that was the first production where I could go and just listen and study and kind of get, you know, the ins and outs of every position. Because a lot of the commercial productions up here, it's so small and it's so like on schedule, and it's all based off of we need to get out of there at 5 p.m. You don't really learn a lot from a lot of people because they don't have the time to teach you that. With Top Chef, you know, they were doing 5 to 6 days for every episode, so you could find that value somewhere on set.
You built a lot of your network by leaning into crew roles like Top Chef. So how intentional was that as a stepping stone? Did you know that you would ultimately build up to your feature film?
I think it's always, I'm in the mindset where I try not to say no to anything when it comes to film. I've been picky about politics, especially in Wisconsin, because Wisconsin is huge when it comes to political productions, especially this upcoming season. So That's the only time I'm very picky. But besides that, I will take, if you're paying my day rate, that's the important thing. If you're paying my day rate, I will pretty much say yes to anything because I do my best to find value in every production.
Rory's Room is written and produced by myself, Rori Nicole, and you can find the show wherever you get your podcasts. Theme songs and background music were produced by TJ Borkenhagen. You can follow Rory's Room on Instagram, @Rory's Room, and follow me at itsrory_x for updates on the show and a few more glimpses into life behind the mic. The goal of this show is to share my story and the stories of others in a way that makes people feel a little less alone. The next episode will be on May 10th, 2026, where we will be sitting down with indie filmmaker and assistant director Amini Hoff. Tune in the following week, May 17th, for the final part of Adam's episode. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you all next time in Rory's Room.